Moving on to the next segment of today's show, I wanted to talk about the Los Angeles Rams Sunday Night Football victory over the Chicago Bears. If you missed it, the Rams ended up getting the win by a final score of 34-14, and I have a lot of thoughts from this game. Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL. What this guy has been able to do since becoming the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams has been super impressive. We all saw what Jared Goff looked like as a quarterback under his first year in the NFL, under head coach Jeff Fisher. If you remember, it was an all-and-out disaster. The Rams looked like they couldn't even move the ball. And there were a lot of people that had their serious doubts about Jared Goff as a starting quarterback in the NFL just 1 year after he was drafted. And Sean McVay came in and immediately this guy became a very good quarterback. Sean McVay got to multiple playoffs and won multiple tough playoff games with Jared Goff as his starting quarterback. And last year, when I looked at the Los Angeles Rams and I would watch them play, it was evident to me that this team was just a quarterback away from being elite. They had the best defense in football last year. Sean McVay is an elite head coach. They have really good weapons, but their quarterback play wasn't good enough. And I wasn't the biggest Matthew Stafford fan during his time in Detroit. Matthew Stafford has been a guy that was drafted number 1 overall, and when you watch him play, the talent is clear. It's evident. It's there. This guy can sling the ball all over the field, but at the same time, he didn't win much in Detroit. However, Detroit is football purgatory. That is a place where football careers go to die. Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, and now Matthew Stafford, all of those guys, they were not able to win and succeed in Detroit. And Matthew Stafford was coming from Detroit to Los Angeles, where Sean McVay was out here going to Super Bowls with Jared Goff as his starting quarterback. So I said, when you combine Stafford going from a terrible situation to a really good one, with his talent, when you watch Matthew Stafford, and we saw him last night, right away, from start to finish of that game last night, Matthew Stafford was out here just slinging the football all over the field. And the Rams are one of the most talented teams in the NFL. There are not a lot of defenses that have as much star power as Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and those two guys made a significant impact. The other thing that I was really impressed with about the Rams, we all know that they had a devastating injury early on in camp. Cam Akers, a guy that a lot of people expected to break out for this Los Angeles Rams team and become one of the better young running backs in the NFL. Unfortunately, he tore his Achilles in the preseason, really before the preseason even started. He is not expected to take a snap for the Rams this season, and Sean McVay, every successful team that he has had in the NFL has had a successful running game. We all remember Todd Gurley in his prime and just how good that Ram team was when he was going. And unfortunately, without Cam Akers, there were a lot of people that were doubtful and skeptical about the Rams' running game. But one thing that impressed me last night was Darrell Henderson and his ability to get the job done. He had a big reception, a long reception as well. I was impressed how they got him involved. And when I look at Matthew Stafford, when I look at Sean McVay, and when I look at this whole situation, it was such a phenomenal scene last night in Los Angeles, the first game at SoFi Stadium with fans. That atmosphere really did look incredible, and that stadium looks so nice. We realized that Los Angeles is a place with so much things to do. There are so many sport teams. There are so many entertainment options between the Rams and the Chargers, the Dodgers, the Lakers, obviously, the Clippers. There are so many teams, and it's hard for you to get people's attention in a place like Los Angeles, especially when you're not winning. But not only that, you need flashy names even if you're winning. You need star power. And I think the combination of Matthew Stafford Sean McVay and this new stadium, and let's just face it, the Rams are a fun team to watch. Their defense is elite. They make the timely stop and the timely tackle each and every play. And I'm telling you right now, the Los Angeles Rams to me look like a Super Bowl contender. And it's crazy that I'm saying that because they have a quarterback that has never won a playoff game in his 9-year career in the NFL. But at the same time, I'll just state it like it is. And Matthew Stafford's definitely been in the league longer than 9 years. I don't know why I even said that. But I'll say it like it is. This Rams team is really good. They are loaded on both sides of the ball. And I totally understand. It was the Chicago Bears. The Bears are not a team that is really going to jump off the pages towards anyone. But at the same time, the Rams dominated that game last night from start to finish. Andy Dalton looked overmatched going up against that Los Angeles Rams defense. And one small concern I had about this Ram team was going to be the loss of Brandon Staley. And I understand Raheem Mostert is an elite defensive coordinator. And he has won a lot of games as a coordinator using his defensive schemes. But the crazy thing is the Rams actually decided that the defense that they used last year was so good that they said, okay, we're going to bring this back. And they really had to lean and teach Raheem Morris how to run that old defensive scheme that Brandon Staley ran and what made their team so successful last season. But I just wanted to say, I was really impressed with this Rams team. Matthew Stafford was throwing the ball down the field. I mean, Cooper Kupp has emerged into an absolute star in this league. You also look at Van Jefferson. It was a great sign that the Rams were able to get him involved. That is, once again, a guy that they took in the second or third round last year. He had some flashes last year, but wasn't really able to establish himself as a consistent wide receiver as a rookie. I think last night, that's a great sign that he caught that long touchdown bomb if you are a fan of the Los Angeles Rams. And also, Matthew Stafford really did a good job opening the playbook, or Sean McVay did a really good job opening the playbook with Matthew Stafford under center. McVay actually said after the game, you're not limited in anything you could do in the passing game when Matthew Stafford is your quarterback. And that's a great sign for the Rams offense as they transition from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. And once again, I don't think Jared Goff is a bad quarterback. I think in the NFL, Jared Goff is a quarterback that could win plenty of games. But it was proven in Los Angeles over the last couple of years that he needed everything around him in order to succeed. When he didn't have a good running game, or when he didn't have a really good defense or good wide receivers, or even, a good head coach in Sean McVay, he was not able to get the job done, and he was not able to elevate his team and put his team on the back when they needed him the most. And this Rams team with a real big-time quarterback that can make all the throws, and on 3rd and 8, when you need him to just fit the ball in a perfectly tight window, I do think that Matthew Stafford, given his physical attributes, given his experience as a passer, he could be able to get the job done. And when you combine that with Jalen Ramsey and how good he looked yesterday, really shutting down Allen Robinson and the rest of these Chicago Bears wide receivers. You also look at some under-the-radar guys on that defense, including Kenny Young, including Corey Fuller. He looked really good. I think the Rams' offensive line played as well as they possibly can. We know that the Bears have a lot of guys that could get pressure on the quarterback, like Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman, Khalil Mack, but the Rams really didn't look phased at all on the offensive line. And they're a really good team. Now, David Montgomery had a really good game for the Bears. Obviously, you want the Rams to clean up that rush defense a little bit. But at the same time, I'm not really worrying about Aaron Donald and the rest of those guys up front for the Los Angeles Rams. Couple thoughts on the Bears in this game. I mentioned it in the 10 things to open the show. I think Matt Nagy may just not have a choice when it comes to who his starting quarterback is going to be. And I think what happened was when Andy Dalton signed with the Chicago Bears, they obviously didn't realize that Justin Fields was going to fall directly into their lap in the draft. And the Bears probably promised Andy Dalton the starting gig when he signed. But this is the NFL. Circumstances changes. things happen, and the Bears had to realize that Justin Fields right now is just clearly the better player than Andy Dalton. And Matt Nagy, he probably just didn't want to start Justin Fields behind that putrid Bears offensive line, who, to be honest, didn't even play that badly last night. And he decided to go with the veteran. He didn't want to get Justin Fields killed, I guess. But at the same time, I just think it's never been easier for quarterbacks coming from college to enter the NFL and to learn the playbook and to play right away, because they had these 7-on-7 satellite camps. They come up knowing how to read professional defenses, and I do think that Justin Fields, considering his athleticism, considering the way he plays and the style he plays with, I think it's perfectly fit for today's modern day NFL game. And I just don't know what the Bears are doing. When I was watching some of these 1 o'clock games yesterday, and I was seeing Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and even Trey Lance make some really nice throws. Obviously, Trey Lance ended up throwing a touchdown on his first NFL pass. It just made me want to see Justin Fields even more under center for the Chicago Bears. He obviously had a nice touchdown run, and it was evident to me the Bears players just got super, super excited on the sideline and celebrating in the end zone when Fields ended up scoring. I just don't know how this is even a decision at this point for Matt Nagy, and it's crazy because I watched a couple of Chicago Bears preseason games up close, and it was funny because all of Soldier Field was just clearly chanting for Justin Fields when Andy Dalton was under center. Think about how nuts that stadium is going to be when Andy Dalton has a 3-and-out to open his drive against his former team on Sunday, the Cincinnati Bengals, in the Bears home opener, their first game at Soldier Field with fans in over a year. That stadium is going to be wanting Justin Fields really, really badly. And Matt Nagy, if the Bears aren't playing well to start off Sunday's game, may not have a choice. To be honest, I lose more and more faith in him as a starting coach the more I watch the Bears play. And this was coming from someone who was a huge Matt Nagy fan prior or after his first year in Chicago. I think he did a phenomenal job with Mitch Trubisky getting that team to the playoffs. But over the last couple of years, Mitch Trubisky obviously wasn't the answer at quarterback. But at the same time, I just haven't loved his play calling. I obviously really don't like the way he is handling the Chicago Bears quarterback situation. And maybe he just knows that he has another year under his belt in terms of head coach and his job security. But at the same time, Justin Fields is the guy that I think may just give the Bears the best chance to win. And once again, one more last point before we end this segment. I just think that the evaluation process is so important now. We have seen plenty of teams bail on a young quarterback when they just clearly know, okay, this guy is not the answer. And the Bears need as much film and as much tape and as much evidence as possible when it comes to the evaluation of Justin Fields. They were not really competitive last night. There was never really a time in this game, even though the Rams were only up 13-7 at the half, that I figured that the Bears were going to win this game. Once again, great performance by the Rams. They looked like a real Super Bowl contender, and I'm just not confident in the Chicago Bears going forward.